Hi everybody, welcome again. Today we're going to be answering a very common question about the New Testament. Why was it originally written in Greek? And this confuses people for a number of reasons. A big question that people have is the New Testament was written during the Roman Empire, so why wasn't it in Latin? Why was it in Greek instead of Latin? Another question that people have is Jesus and the apostles were Jewish, so why wasn't it in Hebrew? And then some people have heard that Jesus's native language was probably Aramaic, so why wasn't the New Testament in Aramaic? Why was it in Greek? These are all really good questions. And there is a good answer for it. And the answer is the reason that the New Testament was in Greek is because Greek in the Eastern Roman Empire during the first century, Greek was the common language that was used among many different classes, many different peoples. So while the western half of the Roman Empire didn't in fact speak Latin, so in Italy, in France, in Spain, and Portugal, Latin would have been the common language of the Roman Empire. In the eastern half of the Roman Empire, Greek was the common language. And you sort of have to go back a couple steps in the history to understand why Greek was the common language in the Eastern Mediterranean. The reason that Greek was the common language of the Eastern Roman Empire, of the Eastern Mediterranean, of northeastern Africa and the Middle East is because about 4 centuries before the New Testament period, Alexander the Great conquered He conquered the Eastern Mediterranean world and northeastern Africa and all the way through the Middle East into India, if you can believe that. So Alexander the Great is the reason why Greek had been at several different levels in those societies, from the Eastern Mediterranean through India. And there had been, before the Roman Empire, there had been the Greek Empire, which is called the Hellenistic Empire. So in the late 4th century BC, the 3rd century BC, and into the 2nd century and the 1st century BC, the Greek Hellenistic civilization was one of the most powerful civilizations in the world. It was divided into different territories, and there were different dynasties within the Hellenistic civilization. But the Greek language and Greek culture were, by the time that Jesus was alive, had been in the Eastern Mediterranean for over 300 years and had penetrated every level of society. Now, it is true that Jesus and his disciples were Jewish, and Hebrew would have been in the Jewish community as it is today. Hebrew is so old that it would have been, even at the time of Jesus, even at the time of the Roman Empire, it would have been a classical language, that it would have been something that the rabbis and the scribes and the scholars would know. But probably out in the countryside where most people were living, probably out in the towns and the villages, there would have been, of course, some Hebrew and maybe the common prayers, but the common language would have been Greek. Another common language, and this what confuses a lot of people, is what about Aramaic? That some people do know that Aramaic was another very popular language or common language in the Eastern Mediterranean at the time of Jesus, and Aramaic comes from the Persians. The Persians spread the Aramaic language across the Near East and Western Asia, and Aramaic had therefore been in the Eastern Mediterranean, and it's definitely possible that people out in the countryside and in the small towns were definitely speaking Aramaic. It's very much possibility that Jesus did speak Aramaic, but he most certainly would have probably known Greek too. And remember that people in these societies actually live pretty multicultural lives. There are all different kinds of peoples interacting from different cultures, different communities with different backgrounds, and these different languages would have been intersecting in these communities, in these towns, and even in the countryside. So it's very likely that Jesus maybe spoke Aramaic natively, but also had Greek, because remember, he's a tradesman, and to be a tradesman you have to engage in commerce, and if you're going to do things of commercial nature in the Eastern Mediterranean during the Roman Empire, Greek would have been the common language. And Hebrew would have played a role as being a member of the Jewish community, of course, and most certainly prayers may have been said in Hebrew, and the priests and the rabbis and the scholars most certainly would have been familiar or even quite fluent in Hebrew. Latin would have actually been a little bit more distant. There, of course, could have been Roman administrators who spoke Latin, but Latin was on the other side of the world. That was in Italy, that was in France, that was in Spain, that was in Portugal. It wasn't in as much, it really wasn't in the Eastern Mediterranean. In fact, Greek Romans in the East, Greek-speaking Romans, a lot of them would have looked down at Latin as those country bumpkins in the West. Most of the big cities in the Roman Empire were in the Eastern Mediterranean, and the Western Roman Empire was sort of seen as the boonies and the sticks. And Latin was really a different culture than the Eastern Greek culture. However, Greek would have been the standard language that all classes, all backgrounds, all ethnic groups would have been functioning in. It may not have been their native language. Well, I hope that helps answer why the New Testament was originally written in Greek. Thank you so much for listening, and have a good day. Bye-bye.